My talk is called Beyond Words, Materiality and the Play of Things. Hello everyone. I am or I was working in my study with my chair, desk, light, sounds of birds and traffic, paper, computer, digital recorder, hands, voice, writing and reading the script, and trying to picture you all and the conference room in London, not now but next Monday, the 24th of June. I must keep to 5 minutes of quick fire, talk more quickly. Thing power. My 91-year-old dad has been falling. Today, last Thursday, he will have had an electronic device, a tiny machine, implanted in his chest to set and steady his heartbeat, to help keep his fleshy body alive. I wanted, therefore, to stay close at hand, and at the same time, I'm disappointed not to be here in person. How to be in two places at once? Thank you, Kerry, for the encouragement and opportunity to record something that can be played with. Many people here might be grappling in different ways with how to do posthumanism and posthumanist research. As Patty Lather and Betty St. Pierre put it, quote, "How do we think a research problem in the imbrication of an agentic assemblage of diverse elements that are constantly interacting, never stable, never the same?" I feel lucky to be part of an Adventures in Posthumanism research group in the Southwest, led by myself and my colleague Professor Josie Quinn. Josie's lovely Posthumanist Beyond Words project inspired the title of this talk. We're based at Plymouth University, but often overlapping, joining with other groups and individuals, for example at Exeter and Bath universities. It's a lively, meandering, sprouting and blossoming, multidisciplinary, multi-practices and multi-contexts community of inquiry. Many doctoral students in the group are boldly inventing posthumanist methodologies, and we're excited about the possibilities and the difficulties this brings. We meet as a reading group to provoke and encourage each other with questions like, what do post-qualitative inquiries do? We might look to Jasmine Ulmer's paper on inquiry in the Anthropocene. Ulmer proposes a trio of probably rather battered and maybe inside-out umbrellas to partially review some multiple points of engagement of posthumanist methodologies. Thinking without, for example, representation, method or proper names. Thinking with, perhaps things, technologies, animals, elements, water, theories. And thinking differently, finding alternatives to methodological orthodoxies, being creative and using different vocabularies, asking what else might be possible and what is the new that can be produced. Consider just for a moment the materialities of how this PowerPoint slide came to be produced. I don't think it's by accident that the field of childhood and early years education is where a lot of exciting and post-qualitative research is happening, for example here in the UK as well as in Australia, the USA, Canada, South Africa. My personal interest in posthumanism and post-qualitative research has also emerged through involvement in the movement of philosophy for children, a transgressive encounter between child and philosophy. Through these encounters, being child and coming new to the world, enchantment, animism, imaginative and exploratory play inspire new questions about what philosophy might become, about not only ways of knowing, but of the privileging of knowing over feeling, intuiting, sensing, making and moving. And these questions have in turn generated different and often very creative research practices. In my presentation, I offer one example drawn from the Decolonising Early Childhood Discourses in Higher Education project, an exciting and innovative international project led by Professor Karen Morris at UCT in South Africa. This was published in our output book, Literacies, Literature and Learning, Reading Classrooms Differently, very soon to be published in paperback. In the special issue of IJQSE, Lather and St. Pierre and the other authors make it clear that rethinking humanist ontology is key in what comes after qualitative methodology. In this talk, I hope to offer you a flavour of grappling with decentering, of doing post-qualitative research, of thinking and practising creatively with the more than human, without banisters or a plan, and differently, through inquiry making, for example. The Decolonising Early Childhood Discourses Critical Posthumanism in Higher Education research project brought together national and international experts from the arts, humanities, social and natural sciences to investigate how a new theoretical framework grounded in critical posthumanism, the effective turn, and socially just pedagogies can explain injustice in respect of discourses and practices of child, children, and childhood, and inform decolonising post-developmental theories and practices in higher education. What was examined in particular is how critical posthumanism can contribute towards a reconfiguration of childhood in the design and content of post-colonial curricula and research projects. The project puts together 3 particular concepts to work, and these are discussed at length in the first part of our book. Disidentification, or what Braidotti describes as, quote, exploding the boundaries of humanism at skin level, unquote. Diffraction, Karen Barad's argument that, quote, knowing is a direct material engagement, unquote, disrupting the binary of material and discursive, proposing material discursive entanglement. And thirdly, Donna Haraway's offer of sympoiesis. Posthumanism is all about the implosion of nature and culture, a plea to rethink relationality together without the nature-culture binary as a sympoetic system. Haraway explains that sympoiesis is a simple word. It means making with, and thinking with, and worlding with, and implies that human and non-human bodies do not move between points in space and time, but are always on the move. One project activity involved a single literacy lesson in a grade 2 classroom in a South African primary school. The lesson included the visiting teacher, Sarah Stanley, working with the children through philosophical inquiry and a picture book, How to Find Gold, by Viviane Schwartz. In the classroom were also a group of student teachers, a cameraman, and members of the research team. Consent had been given by all for this lesson to be filmed and recorded. So this was play thinking with a single literacy lesson teeming with life. A lively, flowing and entangled mass of data were created, generated and troubled. A picture book, a classroom, the chairs, walls, the view through the window, fixed camera, GoPro, iPad, recording devices, the floor, displays, fidgets, lighting, clothing, bags, sheets of paper that were sellotaped together, pens and body fluids, legs and hands, words, bodies of children, teacher, students, researchers, memories, gold, President Jacob Zuma and his swimming pool, secrets, reading practices and discourses of literacy, mobile phones, silences, interruptions, toy crocodiles. What do we leave out when we focus only on the human, the linguistic and behavioural, which is often the case on research on literacy, for example? We wondered about the things we could be missing, not feeling, not hearing, not seeing with our human senses in this grade 2 classroom. We set out to attend to often overlooked aspects of teaching and learning, laughter, affect, and the atmosphere in the classroom, and to experiment by attending also to the more than human as meaning makers. In this presentation, I'm drawing from one chapter in our book, and writing that emerged from a residential research workshop, which was part of the project. At this workshop, the research team, academics, practitioners, research students, technicians, worked together with the different film footages from the literacy lesson, as well as interviews between Sarah, the visiting teacher, and Viviane, the picture book author, recorded back in the UK. Throughout our workshop, we engaged with a range of materials and technologies, continuing to video and still record with cameras and mobile phones, for example. We made inquiries, and inquiries made us. In his book, Making Anthropology, Archaeology, Art and Architecture, Tim Ingold writes, "Knowing is movement to be taught by the world. We owe our very being to the world we seek to know. We grow in knowledge rather than having it handed down to us." And Ingold reminds us that research takes place in real time. This slide shows ideas, things and practices that we were working with and that were particularly important in the writing of this one chapter. The writing emerged through connections with some of our reading and from teaching and art practices with Thing Power, Thing Play, and with studio habitats. So Thing Power. All matter is moving and vibrating with energy. Jane Bennett describes the stickiness of things, their qualities of slowness and endurance, their different temporalities. She notes their porosity, susceptibility to infusion, connectedness, their potent materiality. She describes the sympathy of things freed from the bondage of usefulness to humans, their inhuman ontologies. Bennett's concern is an ethical one. By attending to thing matter, she suggests that humans might find clues to the vital materiality they share with the non-human, and come to recognise humans as matter, and treat the non-human, including animals, plants, earth and commodities, more carefully, more strategically and more ecologically. In our project, through Thing Power, we explored relations of materialised human bodies with things, the materiality of inquiry and meaning-making with texts, of thinking and reading with things, an epistemology of learning with rather than about the world. What about Thing Play? So alongside Thing Power and with our experiences of working in the fields of childhood and early years education, we return to the concept of play and the in-between space of play and thing. We were taken with the work of Paulina Rauschio on material practices in everyday life and her work with Joseph Winston on things and children in play. In using the terms play or playful, we also seek to challenge ageist or sentimental conceptions of who or what can be playful. We use the terms to try and convey the loose, creative, perhaps repetitive, aeonic nature of playfulness. We want to take the age out of play, and our research was playful. And then the studio without walls or a clock, a research colony of Portuguese women of war, perhaps. In our research workshop, we were inspired by picture book author-illustrator Viviane Schwartz, whose picture book How to Find Gold is a vital philosophical text and thing that matters in the project. To visit her website or watch her in action, and to hear her speak of her work is sheer delight. On her biography webpage she writes, "I make things that encourage and facilitate creativity, courage, thoughtfulness and glee. We envied this description of work and wanted to emulate it through our research." Viviane describes herself as an inventor, author, illustrator, performer and teacher. Her work is expressive, playful, humorous, vibrant and alive. Her studio appears as, amongst other things, a playground, storeroom, laboratory, museum, cinematic comic memoir writing space, an ever-changing installation. She's an avid recorder of incidental everyday life, of material and the coincidence of things in and around her studio. These things include her body, her cat, her friends, the sofa, laptop, rhythm and changing light of the day and night, chalk, a blackboard, rolls of cardboard, and things found and treasured. The things offered by Viviane on her website include picture books, a comic about anxiety and depression, cat knitting patterns, videos in which she's reading her books aloud and her hands can be seen turning the pages, an animated rapping bird. In one of the films, the viewer can see the back of her head and her right hand drawing on the page with pen and ink. As she draws, and we can hear the scratch of the nib on the paper, she exclaims with surprise and perhaps with dismay, as the drawing seems to draw itself onto the page, to become something new. "What is it?" we hear her say, laughing but also unsure of what has appeared. To see or read Viviane in action is to appreciate that she has ideas, but also that ideas have her. They take her. That there is a dynamism that ebbs and flows in the vital materialism of her practice. So what did we do? Our data, in inverted commas, included film footages, photos, memories, student-teacher comments, interviews between the picture book author and the barefoot teacher, Sarah Stanley, copies of the picture book, the body minds of researchers, the place near Stellenbosch, the kindness of our hosts, guided walking up the mountain, sleep and cake, the fire. These data, among masses of others, were all available at our residential workshop. Adopting a practice of inquiry familiar from our practice of philosophy with children, we generated and worked with questions. The invitation was to think with the material environment when doing our inquiry, to let the material have us. In contrast to an art-making process where participants might use materials and objects to represent ideas or other things in the real world, this process was to be one in which we would think with and among what was at hand: spaces, materials, ideas, conversations. Notable in our conversations were the exchanges about feet, and one of our workshop questions was, what do feet and shoes bring to this inquiry? How do they work? Viviane Schwartz is interested in what feet are communicating and takes this interest into her drawings. In the interview, film footage, human feet can be seen on the grass, and Sarah and Viviane talk about the feet of the little girl, Anna, and the crocodile, and what they express in the picture book drawings seen here on the slide. Many of us went for walks during our residential workshop, and prior to our viewing of this video exchange, one of our sessions was devoted to taking a walk with greater awareness of its sensory dimensions, particularly the sense of our feet making contact with the ground, with points of connection. Some went barefoot and through grass. Wearing trainers or boots, others were drawn along stony paths or on the walkways around the buildings. We noted sensations of the body, footprints left on surfaces by a trainer, boot or shoe, mud, small stones, pieces of grass attaching themselves to the bottoms of footwear, points of connection to the earth, and patterns of movement of legs or soil. Crevices, marks and traces, the word foot and all its uses, the feet of other animals, the hardness of old paws and the silky skin of a newborn foot. Beyond words, we played and made inquiries with scissors. Blades now tucked into sandals, sliding under the feet they hold, 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs, splayed and displayed. Scissors become crocodile toes and became crocodile feet making crocodile footprints, crocodile prints making crocodile maps, crocodile reflexology charting, footprints already morphing, metal ring toenails appearing, a cotton reel, yellow cotton, the carpet, paper, crayons, glue stick, light, shadow, string, string, stirring. With feet, then, shoes too made their presence felt. What do the presence and absence of shoes make possible or impossible for learning and teaching? The right shoes are often a super significant part of school uniform. The wrong shoes producing reprimands from teachers or being sent home, teasing from peers, pinching of toes, blisters, letting in of water. Shoes and trainers and the number of pairs owned for different activities betray or boast of their wearers' social, political and sexual status. They perform as human body enhancers, making certain human activities possible. What shoes are made of, where they are made, and in what kinds of conditions reveal different forms of exploitation and cruelty. Hard and highly polished shoes associated with the mode of business attire disguise feet and display power, kick ass, rendering poverty and wealth tangible, visible and audible. The tapping of high heels, the squeaking of expensive leather. This style of attire is echoed in school uniforms that speak or not of that aspirational future in the capitalist world. Who is already at the top? Who can climb the ladder? Shoes are colonising too. Lather and St. Pierre argue that the categories we have invented to organise and structure humanist qualitative methodology, for example, the problem, literature review, research questions, methods, data analysis and representation, assume depth in which the human is superior to and separate from the material self, other, subject, object, and human, non-human. They ask, if we give this up, how do we exist? They propose that there is an ethical charge for us as inquirers to question the attachments that prevent us from thinking and living differently. In our project, we were concerned what we might be missing when focusing only on human talk and behaviour in this research on literacy learning. In this presentation, I have set out to demonstrate that, in educational research, every encounter has the potential to produce multiple resonances, and that a relatively small project activity can generate new, significant and plural possibilities, particularly when we work with others across disciplines and contexts. We were a research colony of Portuguese women of war, affecting and affecting each other, interdependent, making with, knitting, dancing, rendering capable. The chapters of our book indicate the different connections and lines of inquiry that this single literacy lesson generated. I have tried to show that we can make research itself creative when we loosen constraints, think with data and material that exert a pull, when we correspond and let material and ideas have us. We can experiment with different processes of making and writing. I've offered some questions, but I'm sure you have your own. For example, in what sense is research creative? Are data collected, found, or created? And is it worth rethinking the idea of scale, both spatial and temporal, in research? I'm very sorry to miss the discussion, listening to others at the conference, and most of all the chat over lunch and coffee. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please do so by email. Now then, look at your shoes. Maybe take one or both off. Maybe put it or them on the table. Go on, give it a go. What do your shoes bring to inquiry? And what is the new that might be produced?